Shannon Ross may have lost by TKO on week 2 of Dana White's Contender Series last summer, and his last win may be back in 2020, but regardless of all of that, he's still making his UFC debut, and this is a big-time opportunity for the man that's representing Queensland, Australia, the Turkish Delight, Shannon Ross, taking on KR Kleydson Rodrigues. Matt, KR didn't make our MMA nickname tier list, but CAMA, what do you make of the nickname?
I would have put it so far down on the list it wouldn't have been on the screen. If we had a Y or Z tier, that's where that would have gone.
Well, we have the former, and I'm talking eternal flyweight champ in Shannon Ross. Eternal getting a lot of the shine. You saw Jack Della from that organization. He's on this card. You saw Jack Jenkins from that organization. He's on this card. Cam O'Neill, got to feel like a proud father. Casey O'Neill's in the UFC, eternal champs in the UFC. It's just a great time for eternal MMA. But when you look at it for Shannon Ross, I'll throw it up there. I mean, after his fight on Contender Series, he loses to Vinicius Salvador. He is a pretty big favorite in that fight. Neither guy had, like Ross hadn't fought in a while, but Salvador hadn't taken on a good level of competition, so you didn't know what you were going to see. Ross got dropped 3 times in that. He got hit by a lot of hooks. He kept coming for more until he got knocked down for the 3rd time in the 2nd round. But for Ross, you know the toughness, the wrestling's there, his boxing's quite good. His durability's obviously a little bit of a question mark. He is 13-6, he's 33, and he is a former or maybe current mechanic. And listen, I have a lot of respect for people in the trade, so friggin' shouts to him. But if you do go down through it and you do look at it, he lost to Ashkan Makhachev back in 2016 for a title over with Eternal. That was up a weight class of bantamweight. He's had some fights against a decent level of competition. Maybe not.
He never really had that run on the regional scene, though, and that was the rough thing to see. Like, even fighters who might not have the greatest run in the UFC, or who you have or who you think could be a really high-level prospect, and they just never really develop, they all go on that run in the regional scene where they have 11, 12-fight win streaks. Shannon Ross, unfortunately, never had that, and he was losing to guys who we do know nowadays, so it's not really the end of the world, but it is a little bit unfortunate to see. Normally, you do like to see them go on that, 8, 9, 10-fight win streak at some point on the regional career.
And for Shannon, I mean, you go down through it, you look at the combined opponent record pre-UFC, it was 44-30, so it wasn't necessarily the best, like we said, but with Eternal, with the ACB when they used to go down to Australia, and Nitro MMA, and if you go down through it, he made his pro debut in 2010, and Kleydson Rodrigues, I mean, he's 27 years old, so he would have been 15 when Shannon Ross was kicking off his MMA career. For Rodrigues, though, he trains at a Team Nogueira, like those Nogueira brothers down in Brazil. And if you look at it for Rodrigues, he was also featured on Dana White's Contender Series. It was the season in 2021. Got a win over former regional champ in the States, Santo Curatolo. So he looked really good in that fight. Like, really, really good. And then he took on CJ Vergara last year. He lost that fight by split decision. If you go down through it, you look at it on MMA decisions, 11 scored at 29-28 Rodrigues, 3 scored at 28-28, 1 scored at 29-28 for Vergara. The judges scored it for Vergara. So Rodrigues comes in, a bit of a layoff after a fight that most thought that he had won in that one, and now he gets to take on Ross, and both these guys match up really well because skill for skill, they tend to strike very well, so it should be fun.
And they both need a win. Like, these are two prospects.
Ross isn't a prospect.
No, exactly. I shouldn't have used the word prospect. Rodrigues is a prospect. Ross is a guy who, if he beats Rodrigues, is probably going to get put in another very similar matchup to the one that he finds himself in this weekend. Because this is Shannon Ross. This sounds so terrible, but we're going to keep you around until you end up losing to another one of these prospects, because with Ross, he is going to make it an exciting fight for as long as it lasts, and that was something that really stood out to me, too. Even when he gets hurt, there's not like there's a quit in Shannon Ross. He's not just going to get dropped and then give up. He will continue to fight, but that does get him in trouble in quite a few of these matchups.
Shannon Ross, I mean, he's closer to 34 than he is 33, but we saw a flyweight debut at that age years ago that had a decent level of success in the UFC. Can you remember him?
I immediately think of Victor Henry up 10 pounds, but...
It was flyweights, Neil Seary, and he debuted against One Punch,
How about that
Brad Pickett.
Yikes.
You like that?
I just think Kleydson, they do find a very similar manner, but Kleydson seems to be turned up like another 5 to 7% in a lot of those areas. And I really thought Rodrigues would have a lot of success once he came to the UFC. And the Vergara fight was close. Again, you guys know how I feel about close fights. Some fights are close. Nobody really wins. But I thought Rodrigues was going to look really good in that matchup. And he was never really able to dominate with any one area of his game. And I know Vergara is a tough guy to get out and look really good against. But I keep on going to the prospect that we just saw yesterday, I should say, on the card. Tatsuro Taira looked looked insane against CJ Vergara, and he really has been able to build on those performances and continue to look really good. And I know not everybody is of that level of a prospect. Like, Tatsulo right now might be like a top 15 fighter. He just doesn't know it yet.
CJ Vergara is our new Jalgash Umagulov.
A little bit, yeah. He's just a good litmus test for any fighter out there. He might not win, but he's going to make it a tough test. I was a little bit disappointed because I was expecting more out of Kleydson, if I can be honest.
And I thought Rodrigues looked really good with the striking. I thought he won the fight, but what area did he struggle in? It was a wrestling defense. And for Shannon Ross, you didn't get to see that when he fought on Dana White's Contender Series because he decided to invite the brawl. And the commentators are saying if he brawls with Salvador, it's not going to go well for him. And he brawled with Salvador, and it didn't go well for him. But Ross, on the regional scene, had a wrestling advantage over a lot of people and would use it. So in a matchup like this, I think Ross does have a wrestling advantage over Kleydson Rodrigues. I think Rodrigues has a striking advantage here. The odds have Rodrigues as the favorite. We'll have a look at the Topology vote. Surprise to us, they are to you. There's a man with 4 kids. And Shannon Ross, Matt, I don't think he's going to be favored by the fans. I'm going to say over under 75% Rodrigues because they're wild.
Probably over. Yeah, they really are.
They're wild out there in the streets. 692 total votes, 90% Rodrigues. The fans aren't making
They're voting
friends.
in group chats. I'm convinced. They're like, hey guys, all 7 of us are going to vote for this one fight.
74% by decision for the 10% that have Ross, 77% by decision. So, Matt, when you do look at this one, again, I do think when it comes to the strike and when it comes to the volume, the varied attack of Rodrigues, I do kind of like him on the back foot. He's got a really nice check right hook when he is backing up. For me, I'm going to take Kleydson Rodrigues in the matchup. But Shannon Ross, a great opportunity here. Kind of close to home, although it's all the way diagonally across the country. So he has a shot in Western Australia to pull out the win, but I'm going to take Rodrigues here.
Remember what Jerry Seinfeld said about a good mechanic? There's few things that can outweigh a good mechanic. Had to do with anyways. Really good episode. I do have Kleydson in the matchup, though. I know I was a little bit down on him based off his last performance, but I do think he was able to showcase enough skills that leave there to be room for him to continue to improve. But that's the thing. Flyweight right now seems to have a lot of these really young, exciting prospects, and it's going to be really difficult for Kleydson to differentiate himself and really separate from the rest of the pack when it does come to these high-level prospects.
Both of us going from the man, or with the man, representing Rio. It's KR, Kleydson Rodrigues, to get the win, a big-time matchup in this flyweight division. Some big-time matchups left on this card, including the next fight, Joshua Culibao taking on Melsik Baghdasaryan. You're not going to want to miss. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.